Hello and welcome back to 3 News Now. I'm Stephanie Haney. Today is Tuesday, October 27th. I've got your top stories from WKYC.com and our WKYC app. Thank you for choosing to be here to get filled in on everything that's impacting you here in Northeast Ohio. I start with a pretty wild story. 2 men have been indicted here in Ohio on charges to intimidate voters using a robocall scam. Now, these men aren't from Ohio, but according to what law enforcement officials say, they definitely know that Ohio is important when it comes to the upcoming presidential election. Cuyahoga County Prosecutor Michael O'Malley said today that John Berkman of Virginia and Jacob Wohl of California, Berkman being 44 and Wohl being 22 years old, are now being charged with attempting to suppress voting in minority communities across the Midwest, including Cleveland and the East Cleveland area. So Berkman and Wohl are accused of using a service to place over 67,000 calls, including more than 8,100 calls to Cleveland and East Cleveland residents. And in those calls, they were intimidating residents to refrain from voting by mail, according to the prosecutors. Now, remember, these are charges. They have not been convicted in a court of law, but these are the allegations that the prosecutor talked about today. He said that the men falsely warned people that if they voted by mail, their information could be used by law enforcement, by collection agencies, and the Centers for Disease Control for things like collecting outstanding debts, mandatory vaccine tracking, and pursuing old warrants. Now, of those 8,100 calls to the Cleveland and the East Cleveland area, more than 3,400 were either answered by a live person or made it to an answering machine. Now, just to think about this in a different way, when we think about phone calls, we all get calls that are unsolicited. But imagine if you were walking down the street and you harassed 3,400 people. You just came right up to their face and started doing it. That's basically what's happening when you're contacting someone through the phone. Our phones have become very intimate parts of our lives. So when you think about it like that, it gets all the more egregious, the thing that these men are accused of doing. So if they are convicted, they face up to 18 and a half years in prison. They're both facing 8 counts of telecommunications fraud and 7 counts of bribery. Now, they are not yet in custody, but arrest warrants have been issued for them, and once they are brought into custody, they'll be arraigned at the Cuyahoga County Justice Center at a later date. We'll definitely be following that case for you here at 3 News. Now, this afternoon, Governor Mike DeWine held his usual Tuesday press conference, and he is talking about what people need to do while the COVID-19 cases continue to surge here in Ohio. He talked, of course, about the fact that we need to continue to wear a mask when out in public and with friends, that we need to keep a safe distance from others, wash hands, and keep buildings well ventilated, but also said if you're living in a high incidence of COVID-19 county, which, by the way, that's currently 82 of our 88 counties, that we need to be reconsidering hosting or attending gatherings of any size, canceling events and not attending Halloween parties, and also wearing a mask both inside and outside in situations where it's not possible to keep that 6-foot physical distance. And of course, the same advice we've been getting for a long time, individuals who don't feel well need to stay home. Now, with all of that in mind, Governor Mike DeWine said that we need to be taking this very seriously. And now we have those latest numbers in from the Ohio Department of Health. Cases are up again from yesterday. Hospitalizations are up and deaths are up here in Ohio. This is the 8th day in a row that we've seen more than 2,000 new daily reported cases of COVID-19. That number today is 2,509 new COVID-19 cases reported in the last 24 hours. Almost 203,000 total cases that we've known about now, dating back to March 9th in Ohio. And our average testing positivity rate has also gone up. Over the last 7 days, that average is 5.7%, so continuing to go up even further away from that World Health Organization recommended threshold of 5%. And the latest daily rate for positivity testing is 6.2%. So for all the COVID-19 tests being done, 6.2% is the latest daily rate for the number that have come back positive. And in the last 24 hours, there have been 22 new reported deaths. That's up from 11 reported on Monday. We've also seen 198 new hospitalizations in the last 24 hours, with a total of 1,456 people currently in the hospital being treated for COVID-19. And of those people in the hospital being treated for COVID-19, 418 of them are being treated in the ICU. So that's just under 1/3 of people being hospitalized for COVID-19 are needing to be treated in the intensive care unit. We've seen 20 new ICU admissions just in the last 24 hours. The hospital bed occupancy rate is also up about 5% from yesterday. That's now at 73%, leaving 27% of our state's hospital beds available for people that need them to be treated for inpatient things. Now let's take a look at the national and the global numbers. These numbers come from Johns Hopkins University. Here in the U.S., we are now at 8,735,312 COVID-19 cases total since the pandemic first entered the U.S., since we first became aware of it and confirmed cases. That total number of deaths is now at 226,171, and we are still holding steady with about 4% of the global population. The U.S. has 20% of the COVID-19 cases and 19.6% of the known COVID-19 deaths in the entire world. Globally, the number is now at 43,713,470 reported cases of COVID-19. Remember, it was just a week and a day ago that we hit 40 million globally, so getting very close to 4 million cases since that was reported just 8 days ago. And the total number of deaths globally is now 1,162,512. Destination Cleveland is now talking about how COVID-19 is impacting tourism here in Cuyahoga County. Of course, we knew that number would be down, but now we know just about how much it will be down. When the final numbers come in for 2020, Destination Cleveland, based on a consultant they hired to take a look at the numbers, is projecting that Cleveland and the Cuyahoga County area will see only about 1/3 of the people that came to visit in 2019. Now, 2019 was a record-setting year for visitors to Cleveland. There were 19.6 million people that came to the Cuyahoga County area, and that had an economic impact of almost $10 billion and $1.2 billion in tax revenue. So the Destination Cleveland CEO, David Gilbert, is letting us know that this will lead to significant permanent job loss. Officials say that about 70,000 jobs in Cuyahoga County depend on local tourism, so obviously that's a lot of people with less to do when you only have about 1/3 of the visitors that you had in the previous year. So Destination Cleveland is now saying that the county won't likely return to previous levels until about 2024. Now that's longer than it took to recover from the Great Recession of 2008. Businesses are gradually reopening in the greater Cleveland and the Cuyahoga County area, but as we just talked about, case numbers are now at the highest levels that we've seen in the pandemic here in Ohio, and Cuyahoga County is now in danger of potentially moving into that level 4, that purple level on the public health advisory system, and at that point, it's recommended that people stay in and only travel for necessary situations like groceries and medical services and essential services and those kinds of things. Now, throughout all of this, Destination Cleveland is doing what it can to keep businesses running. It's created the Clean Committed program. What that does is that encourages health and safety protocols for the businesses that are open and helps direct residents in the area to places that are utilizing those best practices when it comes to COVID-19 safety. Gilbert said that it has obviously been a very challenging year in 2020, and it is important that we celebrate the record growth that Cuyahoga County saw in 2019 in the tourism industry. And he did say that Destination Cleveland was on pace to reach its goal of 20 million visitors in 2020, of course, before COVID-19 became an issue for all of us that we are all now dealing with the repercussions of. And Gilbert said that travel and tourism does remain a key industry for Cleveland's future, even projecting that things won't bounce back to that normal level till 2024. The silver lining there is that things are expected to bounce back eventually. Now taking a look towards the end of the week on the weekend, former President Barack Obama is expected to appear on LeBron James's HBO show, The Shop. That'll be on Friday. That's alongside his business partner, LeBron James' business partner and friend, Marvick Carter. So the episode was taped this weekend, according to what former President Barack Obama tweeted, and it's supposed to air at 9 p.m. on Friday, just 4 days ahead of the 2020 presidential election. Obama tweeted today that they talked about the NBA bubble, racial justice, and what's at stake over these next 7 days. Obama tweeted not to give up your power and to make a plan to vote. He is supporting his former Vice President Joe Biden, who is the Democratic candidate for president. LeBron James, of course, has been very active when it comes to fighting voter suppression. He founded the organization More Than a Vote this summer. That was after the civil unrest that erupted after the killing of George Floyd while he was in police custody in Minnesota. Both of the candidates are really ramping up the campaign in these last days leading up to the election while early voting is underway in many states. So the travel is on. We are expecting to hear a lot from the candidates, both former Vice President Joe Biden and President Donald Trump, and all of their respective surrogates in the next several days. Now let's talk about one more person that you need to get to know if you don't know anything about him. That's wide receiver Donovan Peoples-Jones for the Cleveland Browns. In case you weren't aware, that is the man who caught that game-winning touchdown pass in the last 16 seconds of the game against the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday, leading us to a 37-34 victory and a Browns record of 5-2. I don't think it's ever going to get old for me to say that the Browns are currently 5-2. Well, it might get old for me on Sunday when I can hopefully say that the Browns are 6-2 against the Raiders. But anyway, we're talking about Donovan Peoples-Jones right now, and here are 3 things that you need to know about him. He was the 6th round draft pick for the Browns in the 2020 NFL draft, but he is a 5-star talent. That's according to former Ohio State football coach Urban Meyer, who said that he thinks Peoples-Jones should have been a top 10 draft pick, and that when he was scouting him in high school and unsuccessfully recruited him, but tried to, that he was one of the best receivers he had ever seen. So basically, a real steal for the Browns in that 6th round. He left that team up north where he played college football early, skipping out on his senior year to declare for the 2020 NFL draft, and tested as the top player at wide receiver and in the 99th percentile of the NFL talent at the scouting combine. And third, we could be seeing a lot more playing time for Donovan Peoples-Jones with, unfortunately, Odell Beckham Jr. out with that torn ACL for the rest of the season. That's especially if the Browns don't trade for another wide receiver by Tuesday, which is the NFL's trade deadline. So those are just a couple of fun facts about rookie wide receiver Donovan Peoples-Jones, who really proved himself to be a playmaker when the Browns really needed it in literally the last possible seconds against the Bengals on Sunday. That's it for your 3 News Now afternoon update for Tuesday, October 27th. I'll see you next up on What's New at 5 p.m. with your trending stories in the Clicking in Cleveland segment. You can watch that for free, by the way, in the WKYC app. If you just open up that app at 5 p.m. and you tap on Watch, you'll see our live broadcast right there, and that works for all of our news broadcasts. If you want to catch that, if you are a cord cutter and you don't have cable, like me. And another reminder for you, this is now available as a podcast. If you're already listening to 3 News Now with Stephanie Haney on your favorite podcast platform, thank you. Please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review it. I would really appreciate it. That helps us connect with more people here in Northeast Ohio and bring you the stories that are impacting you. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. I'll see you back here tomorrow for more 3 News Now. Stay safe and be well. I'm Stephanie Haney.